All right, let's take a look at Chapter 4. Oops. Interpersonal communication and the self. Sorry, I can't get this to minimize. Okay. So, just so you know, the book that we're using is the 15th edition. It comes with PowerPoints, which are incredibly boring. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the PowerPoints from the last edition and I'm modifying them as needed. So you will notice this one looks different from the first three. I couldn't stand how bland it was. All right, so we're looking at interpersonal communication and the self. Section 1, you're going to see a lot of self words. So we're looking at communication and the self concept. And when you get to as we go through this section, I'm hoping that you will be able to, so pay attention to, describe how the self concept is subjective and how the self concept is shaped by communication with others and how the self concept affects communication with others. Okay, so I just broke down that statement into 3 different mini statements. Before you can do this, make sure you have done exercise 4.1, which I handed out in class on Wednesday. If you were not in class, I have included that handout. Basically, what you're doing, it's in this folder of work for the week. What you're doing is you are sitting down and you are using the mini prompts, the 8 prompts that ask you to look at different aspects of yourself, and you can of course add anything that you feel is important that's not covered, and then it asks you to put these concepts in order as far as you are concerned. These are the components that make up who you are. You need to have those so that you can really personalize this section in the chapter. Okay, so your self-concept, and I like this, relatively is the important word here. Relatively stable set of perceptions you hold of yourself. As we get older, our perceptions change. Unless something major has happened to you, you've had a near-death experience, for example, the perception that you have of yourself does not change a whole heck of a lot as we get older. We'll talk about things that can cause it to change. So that's your list of 20. You started with 24 and then it asked you to narrow it down to 20. Okay. Another very important self word in this chapter is self-esteem. And that is the part of the self-concept that involves evaluations of self-worth. So I like to use this as an example. Let's say one of the qualities that you feel is really central to who you are is being relatively, I don't like to use the word shy, but okay, shy or reserved. You don't go out of your way to talk to people that you don't know, maybe. Okay, so that is part of your self-concept. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How about it's just a thing? Where the self-esteem comes in, if you grew up in a family that's very outgoing, you might have got the message that being quiet, shy, reserved was just not good. And so your self-esteem would take a little bit of a ding. Or you might have grown up in a family that was relatively quiet and shy and reserved. And so you would have learned that this trait that you have is a good thing. And so then your self-esteem gets a boost. Okay, so remember, this is your self-esteem. Your self-esteem is a central component for your own personal social phenomena. Why do you feel this way about yourself? It's very likely because that's what your family told you or subtly showed you, what you learned about yourself in school, in your sports team, etc. Okay, so to me, I think for a lot of people that they say, yeah, that makes sense. But how can having high self-esteem or low self-esteem affect your communication behavior? So we've got these feedback loops. Let's start on the left. You have relatively high self-esteem. You just believe that the traits you have they're good. I don't like to use the word good, but that's how we think about it in self-esteem. They're effective. They serve you well. So because you have this high self-esteem, you have positive thoughts. I can do this. I have an interview and I know how to do this. I'm going to do it well. So you actually exhibit the desirable behaviors, which leads to more positive thoughts. I did well, which leads to high self-esteem. So it becomes this positive cycle. What about if you have low self-esteem? You were like me in my 30s. Where my negative thoughts, I cannot interview to save my life. And so as I'm going into the interview, I'm stressing. I'm such a lousy interviewer. I know I'm going to mess this up. They're going to think I'm such an idiot. Undesirable behavior. I mess up my words. I let that fluster me. So then I have negative thoughts. See, knew it. Can't interview well, which lowers my self-esteem. We're gonna refer back to this idea a little bit later, but these cycles are very, or the feedback loop, it's a very important concept to make sure that you understand. Okay, so how is it that the self-concept develops? So basically, two very important ideas that are instrumental in how we develop a self-concept are reflected appraisal and social comparison. And I put two other vocabulary words here. There's a ton of vocabulary in this chapter, I think even more so than many other ones. So reflected appraisal, so it says, okay, it's a mirroring of judgments of those around you. So you are in a family and the family is saying to you, either overtly saying to you or just letting you know that, you are a great student and you can do this. So you reflect. I hate when people say reflect back because that's what reflecting is, but I'm going to use that term. Okay. You reflect back to your parents and the world at large that yes, you can do it. You are a good student. You have stick-to-itness. Okay. What if on the other hand, the message that you're getting is you're a screw up, you're not going to amount to much? Then the face that you show to the world is, I'm a screw up, I'm not going to amount to much. So you are reflecting to the world what people have been showing to you. When who are these people? They are the significant others in our life. Now, in popular speech, when we use significant other, we usually are using it to refer to a romantic partner. But in the social sciences, when we say that, these are people whose evaluations are influential and important to you. So it tends to be family, teachers, coaches, friends, people that you feel are just, they're very important in your life. I mean, if coach says, you're playing tennis, you got a weak backhand, you need to work on it. You say, yeah, okay, I probably need to work on it. If as you're practicing, somebody you don't even know goes by you and goes, wow, that's a real weak backhand, you're probably just going to flip them off. You don't care because they're not a significant other in your life. Okay, so number one is it's, people who are important to us tell us, again, sometimes in words, sometimes in actions, what they think we are, and we show that to the world. The other one is social comparison, and we evaluate ourselves in terms of how we compare to others. Am I the same as other people? I'm going to guess that all of you can remember when I was in high school, it was the first day of school, right? Elementary school through high school. The first day of school outfit was very important. And you wanted to look good. You probably even wanted to look better than everyone else, but you definitely wanted to look a little bit like everyone else. So how do we compare with others? Are we similar to the group that we're comparing ourselves to, and are we better or worse than? So that's one, if you're constantly seeing that, wow, I am an outsider, I am nothing like these people, it can cause your self-esteem. I'm trying to say three things at the same time. It can cause our self-esteem to rise or to sink. If we have grown up in a family that values being our own person, marching to the beat of our own drummer, then the fact that you are not like other people makes you feel good. Your self-esteem goes up. If you are in a family that really emphasizes how important it is to fit in, to toe the line, to follow the rules, and you look very different from other people, you're not going to be happy about yourself. So when I went to high school, my parents were Peace Corps volunteers, so I lived in Ghana in West Africa for 2 years. So when I got back to the United States, I was in a new school, didn't know people, had no idea anything about the styles, and I've always been kind of clueless about that stuff. And this is actually kind of embarrassing to say, that my first day in high school, I wore knee socks, white knee socks. I mean, the outfit was really nice. I can remember it clearly. It was a jean skirt, and then I had a blue and white striped top, and nobody else in the entire school was wearing white knee socks. I don't think when I went home I burned them, but I'm sure I never wore them again because I felt too weird. Okay, well, what was my reference group? Who was I comparing myself to, or who was I referring to? What was it was the other girls in my grade, and they were all really cool, and I was very dorky. Okay, so I hope these terms make a lot of sense. There is a great focus on research. In the textbook, it's on page 91. If you are reading this as the ebook, they seem to be off about a page, so it might be page 90 or it might be page 92, but it's right around there. And what they're saying is, does Instagram equal Insta-sad? I saw an article, which I was not able to open on my phone, from Wall Street Journal, that had to do with how Facebook knows that I think Instagram is not good for teenage girls. I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'm going to put it up in the articles that you could look at. Okay. So we have to be careful about who our reference groups are. Okay. The next area we're going to look at is characteristics of the self-concept. I'm going to put this video up, the Dove Evolution commercial. It's kind of eye-opening, and just because I think they're kind of funny, I'm going to put up another Dove commercial, which is serious, and it talks about how women view themselves. And then I'm going to put up a video that someone made, which is a spoof, and it's how men view themselves. So one is more serious, the other is less serious. Okay, but we're going to look at four characteristics of the self. So the self-concept is subjective, which means sometimes the way we see ourselves is not how other people see us. And we're going to talk about this more in the second section, and when we look at the exercise 4.2 that I'm asking you to do for homework. Okay, so sometimes we see ourselves as better than we really are. Sometimes we see ourselves as worse than we really are. So the Dove commercials, I'm going to do this Dove Evolution commercial first. The second one will be one where women see themselves as worse than they are, and the third will be where men see themselves as better than they are. So sometimes we really are not operating in reality. Okay. Why? So we inflate or underestimate our self-perception. Why? Well, it could be obsolete information. For recently I was saying to a friend of mine, I have no self-control. And she looked at me and she said, Marguerite, you get up every day before sunrise and you go out and walk. To me, that sounds like a lot of self-control. And I thought, well, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. I was thinking about me 10 years ago. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I spelled perfection. Trying to fix the word perfectionism, I goofed it up. Okay. It could be distorted feedback. Maybe you had overcritical parents or teachers or coaches, or, do you remember when American Idol was on, and then I stopped watching it. It made me very uncomfortable because there would be people in the early stages who would go on and sing, And these are people who would say, my family tells me I have such a great voice, and they would be really awful. That's also distorted feedback. I couldn't stand that. I just kept thinking, how cruel are these people? Anyways, the third word down there is perfectionism. Anyways, I got to hire a proofreader. So we, social media and just, TV and magazines, we're always seeing models, both male and female, who are perfect. That's where this Dove commercial will really come into play. And we're measuring ourselves against that. We're using social comparison, and we can't be perfect. A couple years ago, Jamie Lee Curtis did a photo shoot or a little video where she said, "Okay, people, this is what I look like when I've gone through this photo shoot, and then this is the real me." And the photo shoot shaved inches off and added inches where it needed to be. So what we see is not reality, and yet many of us aspire to what we can't have because it doesn't exist, and that's perfectionism. There's also social expectations. I like the example the book gives. You want to be seen as successful but humble. In culture in the United States, for the most part, we don't want people to say good things about themselves because that's seen as bragging. Okay? So it's much more acceptable to say bad things about yourself. I'm trying to figure out why a country that prizes individualism and everyone being, standing up for themselves, why we can't brag. I don't know. I see if I can find some information about that. But anyways, these are, 4 ideas of why our self-concept might not be exactly accurate. The next 3 are, a healthy self-concept is flexible. We're growing. We're being exposed to many different situations, and our personality and the way that we communicate is changing. And I was shy. I did not talk an awful lot in high school, and I thought when I got to college, okay, here's my chance. Nobody knows me. I can be the person I want to be, and I kind of chickened out. And it wasn't until I went to Niger, West Africa, where I thought, you're on a completely different continent, Marguerite. There's nobody who's going to say, oh, you're Kathy's younger sister. Older sister. She's so outgoing. What are you like? Okay, oh, no, I'm not. Just let me sit here in the corner and read my book. Okay, so I put myself in situations that enabled me to be a little more outgoing, and I also came to realize that it's okay to sometimes be quiet. So that's how it was flexible. A healthy self-concept is also multifaceted. You're like a diamond, okay? So we're not, what would it be? We're not what's a half round? Is there, like, if suppose someone cut a diamond, but instead of doing all those different sides, they just made it, did you ever see a mood ring? It's just like a round piece of glass. It's only one thing, but we are not only one thing. Man, I see multifaceted too. I was having problems with my computer. Okay. And the last one is the self-concept resists change. Right? Even though we are flexible, as we, I sometimes I see this. You have a student who was not a great student in high school, and then they come to college and they're doing really well, and they don't believe it. They still think of themselves as that person who was not a great student. So why does this happen? There is a concept called cognitive conservatism. Cognitive has to do with thinking, and conservatism being resistant to change. So what do? Because this is built in to us, we will look for information that conforms to our existing self-concept. We will, my son wasn't a great student in high school. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. And he's been doing really well in college. And yet he doesn't see that. So, I'll say, well, you did you did a great job in comp. And, oops. And he will say, oh, yeah, but I didn't do too well in this class. So he's like ignoring information that can show how his self-concept has changed. And he's hanging on to the information that conforms to an existing self-concept. Okay. Last of all is the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you think back to that, I'm going to flip back because I want to use the exact correct terminology, the communication or perception feedback loop. Okay, your perception of yourself, or your expectations of an event, and your behavior based on those expectations make the outcome more likely to occur, right? So what happens? You believe that when you meet new people, you know that you can go up to them and you can talk to them and you can put them at ease because you just know that you're a good conversationalist. So what happens? That's your expectation. So when you see them, you're a good conversationalist. So, you walk out of there saying, wow, I could do this. And then it reinforces that original expectation. It can be a positive self-fulfilling prophecy, and it can be a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. So, okay. It can also, there can be self-fulfilling prophecies that we impose on ourselves. I'm no good at this. I'm really good at this. I'm super shy. I could never talk to people I don't know. So in the back of my mind has always been the idea, always, I'm putting that in air quotes, the idea that I'm shy. And truthfully, it's not that I'm shy, it's more that I am introverted, which means that when I'm with a lot of people, it sucks my energy. And so for example, after I teach a class, I really need to go back to my office, shut the door, and kind of decompress and regain my energy. Extroverted people are the ones who feed off of the energy of other people. And so if they're tired and they need to energize themselves, they'll go out to a party with a lot of people. So that was kind of a digression. But if I believe, I can't go up and talk to people that I know because I am just too shy, then I've just set up that negative cycle, right? And what I realized about myself is if I perceive that the people that I need to talk to are feeling kind of ill at ease, then my desire to be helpful comes to the forefront and I can go over and talk to people. But if everyone seems to be having a good time, nope, I'm going to hide in the corner and take out a book and start reading it. Okay, so that's a self-imposed prophecy. What I think are really interesting are the prophecies that are imposed by other people. So other people's expectations of you are going to govern how you behave. So the last point says the observer must communicate their belief for the prediction to have an effect. So Pygmalion in the Classroom was a book that came out in 1968. I remember my father telling us about this when we were youngsters, more or less. So basically, in the school, elementary school teachers were told these students were gifted, that they were high achieving students. This, 20%. So, Professor, Mrs. Smith, in your class, you've got these 4 students and they are gifted. Well, all of a sudden, by the end of the semester, these children they said 8 months later, these children showed significantly greater scholastic achievements. They were ahead of their class. And yet, these kids were selected at random. They were not necessarily gifted. Well, what happened? So somehow the teachers in that classroom let the students know that they felt that they were smart, and so the kids became smart. And the reverse can happen, right? If you've ever been in a situation where someone feels that you are dumb as a bag of rocks, or whatever the term is, they communicate that to you. You're probably like, yep, you're right. Why should I try hard for this person who doesn't believe in me? So, okay. So this was the first section. At this point, can you tell me what is the self-concept? Okay? Can you tell me how the self-concept is shaped by communication? And can you tell me how the self-concept influences communication? If you can do those three things, you have a good understanding of this section. Okay, I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to look at the next section. Oh, where is my Kaltura? Okay, and stop.